All right, let's share screen. There we go. Okay. Thank you for coming today. Today, we're going to talk about your shop as a third place. So if you've never heard of the phrase a third place before, it is a anthropological, sociological concept. And so it was put together in this book by Ray Oldenburg in the 80s, and it's been adopted and utilized in other areas of the world and academia. So if the first place, so think about the places where you spend your days. If the first place is home, and the second place is work, and then the third place is anywhere else you could go. So there generally are places that are pillars in the community, places where you can sit and converse, and you have places to gather and interact. So typically that would be a coffee shop. Think about, you sit there, meet for a cup of coffee, a beauty parlor, a quilt store, a yarn shop. How often do I spend my Saturdays at my local yarn shop and the table in the back just sitting and knitting? That's a third place. So putting your business as a third place will make you and your products special. We are putting our personality and our community together as part of the package for what we are presenting for commerce to sell. Oops. So I want you to think about this in a brick and mortar way, but also in a digital way. So it is better for your business to create interactions and not just sales. So people are going to remember that you have thought of them with maybe some personalization, convenience, and then being flexible. So these are just tenets that will help you when you're thinking about your third space. Now, when I say this, so personalization, convenient, I want to touch on that real quick, and be flexible where you can. So one of the key things with a third space is that barrier for entry is like, what is it going to take to be in a third space? A lot of the places that used to be third spaces, the barrier for entry, the cost to get there, they have gone from either being free or very low cost to being very, very expensive. So if we go back to the coffee shop thing, for example, if you had a cup of coffee for $2, however many years ago, and now it is $8, it's like that barrier for entry is much more difficult. So you have to think about what it takes to get into your shop. Is it convenient? Is it available to your people? So when you're making a third space, there are 8 points to think about. And okay, 8 sounds like a lot. However, they make sense once you think of them. So the first thing is it has to be a neutral ground. So it has to be something where everyone can come together. There's not, again, back to that barrier for entry. So there are not rules about who can come and who can't. It's a leveling place. So that means that everyone is the same when they walk into that third place, when they walk into your shop. So someone who lives in this neighborhood is not going to be treated any differently than this neighborhood. Someone who does this craft is not going to be treated any differently than this craft. So everyone is the same when they walk in the door. So this is the interesting one, which I think people get hung up with, because we're shop owners, right? We are here to sell. But how often do you go to a retreat and think back on how great the retreat was, and you look back and you got nothing done? It's like, that's still a successful retreat. So conversation is an activity, is a pillar of what makes a good third space. Accessibility and accommodation. So this goes beyond, and I'll talk about this in a minute, this goes beyond, can people get to your shop? Is it accessible? Is it clearly marked? Is it, all of the Americans with the ADA, all of those things that happen? And we're not talking about that. Can you accommodate different people and different styles, different things in your shop? So the regulars, every place has them. That makes a good third shop or third place. So if you're going, thinking about the parks and all the chess things, you always have there's a reason why it's a trope in movies. You have the little old guy hunched over at the chessboard surrounded by pigeons. Who is that person that is always going to be parked exactly where they're going to be, and they're going to show up every single time at your event? Who are your regulars? A low profile. This is also something that I think trips people up, like, because we always want to talk about, people, especially with crafting, is a visual medium, right? So we're making things that's very easy to show what we're doing. So why do we want to keep a low profile? In this, we mean that the focus is on the activity, not just the building. So we're not talking about, we're making sure that everything's decorated to the nines and everything has, great architecture, all this other stuff. The focus is on my hair that day. If we're presenting for a digital community, we're not talking about that. The focus, the low profile, the extras, think of it as the extras. Do not overwhelm the actions. Think of it that way. Playful mood. Playful mood. This is not a pressure filled environment. This is fun. This is laughing. This is talking. We are not out to cut people down, to criticize people. We have a playful mood. It's your home away from home. It's like, this is work is one level of activity. Home is another level of activity. We want this to feel just as good as or better than home. So how do you make those third space things into your shop? Neutral ground, so you can explore without obligation. So if someone comes in to your shop, whether that is online or in person, if we're talking brick and mortar, there's not a bouncer at the door. There's not an expectation that they have to buy something. It's not gated where they have to give you their email in order to get in. They have to, give you a little something. They can look around, and the expectation is not that they have to buy. So we want to make sure that they have those opportunities. Equal service and access no matter the skill level. This one, I think people fall into it with like, oh yes, I always do that. Well, do you? Because if you have someone walk into your shop and you know that they're going to spend, a bunch more because they are working on this thing, are you going to just focus on more attention and drop everything for them versus the person that you, as a beginner, and takes more work to explain something? Make sure that you're giving everyone equal service and access to you. So this is the other thing that comes up, is the third space. You are the embodiment. We all know that as the faces of our businesses, whether that's, online or the about page or something, everything lives and dies with you when it's your business, it's your baby. So equal service and access also means equal service and access to you. You do not get to be only accessible to a few people. I talked about this briefly. It's like, workshops and classes are still successful if you do not complete the project. So that's part of the fun, right? Is you go to a class and you sit next to people you've never met before, and suddenly you come away with new knitting friends, and you're exchanging numbers and emails, and you have conversation is part of that. You're not just head down. This isn't, there won't be a quiz at the end. You're not focusing only on the task. We are getting together as a community to craft, create, quilt, knit, sew together. This is an important thing to think of. If you are teaching someone and they don't make a half square triangle the same way that you do, can you still teach them? If someone comes in and they're left-handed, can you teach them continental knitting? Can you help them and give them supplies, tutorials, accommodation for different techniques? So because there's lots of different ways to create, and your shop should be able to help, maybe not all of them all the time, but we need to be more a well-rounded approach. We need to make sure that we're working with everyone to the best of their ability and ours. There is no one right way to do things. We do things a bunch of different ways. Turn your regulars into your brand ambassadors. This is a little sneaky thing that I put in there. So we all know our regulars. We know they're going to show up every time. So they are now your brand ambassadors. What makes them special? What can you use them as part of your third space, growing your third space? The best form of marketing still, which is why organic marketing still works. Organic marketing includes word of mouth marketing. That is your brand ambassadors going out and telling people, hey, do you see how great this shop is? I come here all the time. What can you do to boost some people into that brand ambassador position? What can you do to reward your regulars, your brand ambassadors that are there for you every step of the way? Focus on the craft. So there are beautiful shops out there, and I'm not talking about the ones that are, converted old buildings that are super cool and all of that stuff going on. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But if you are a craft shop and you suddenly start selling, here's an example from big box stores. If the big box stores focus on the craft, it was like this happened with Hancock's fabric. They brought in things that were not crafting focused and then had all of this other stuff tied up, and so they lost focus on what they were there for. So make sure not only your environment, your approach to things, your product line is a focus on the craft. Make sure you keep that focus on what you are doing, so you're not trying to be flashy and catch all the trends and do all of these things that are outside of where we need to be. We are focusing on our craft. Playful mood. So how many people go into a shop and you're excited to show something and they immediately say, well, do you know you did that wrong? Here, let me show you a better way to do that. And suddenly all the joy that you had for your show and tell is just sucked out of the room. You want to be a place that is playful, that is joyful for your customers, for your people to come. We are not here to pressure them to perform any certain way. We are not the quilt police. We are not here as the judges for the shows. We are here to support them. We are playful. We are talking to them. We are supporting them in everything that we do. And the home away from home, your environment and your employees. It's always true that shops will attract their people, and you want to make sure your people are focused on the shop. So things that happen in the shop that maybe, we all have bad days with customers. We all have bad days with other employees. Make sure that those things which make it feel less like a home away from home stay out of the sphere of the third place. It's like not every part of your building, not every part of your brick and mortar, your business, wherever needs to be the third space. It's like we want, if you need to have those things where you have those little blow ups and stuff like that, make sure that they are separate from where all of this other stuff that you've worked so hard to build and bring together occurs in a separate place. If you have a third place and you're like, there's no one here, treat them like they're the only people in the room. Do not be the person that is a little bit sour because I'm building all of this stuff for people and no one's coming. They still showed up for you. So part of that goes back to being neutral and being playful and all those other things. There's nothing wrong with expressing frustration. However, you cannot let that overwhelm your third space. So if you start small and you're disappointed at something with something or the turnout or something like that, they still showed up for you. It is still important to treat your third space. It is a neutral ground. We are making sure that it is neutral, it is playful, it is accommodating. They still showed up for you. We have this in an article on our website. You can either check out the link at the bottom, you can use the QR code, get access to all of this information. And just wanted to say thank you for showing up today. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to stop sharing and we will upload this later to our YouTube video. So this will later be on our YouTube where you can check out all of our previous office hours, and we will be back next month with more presentations.